Episode 31 of Bardown Beauties, presented by SodaStick.com. We've got news from week 1 of Minnesota Wild Training Camp 2.0. Plus, we catch up with Alex Mandryky, a woman killing it in the stats game, improving why women deserve to be very present in the sports world. We'll wrap it all up with Dear Diary. Stay tuned, episode 31 coming at ya. As always, Bardown Beauties is presented by SodaStick.com, where you can snag all the coolest gear for the Minnesota sports fan in your life. Hats, tees, and hoodies in original designs celebrating your favorite Minnesota sports moments. You'll find at SodaStick.com. Use code Bardown Beauties at checkout for free shipping. Be a beaut with SodaStick. Hello, everybody. We back. Episode 31. Let's go. Do we want to start with hockey, or do we want to talk with how women continue to be disgraced in sports? Alexis, what's your pick?
Yes.
Let's start with hockey and kick off because it was an exciting week. Training camp back in action. Very weird out there. As you guys know, we were present. Because it feels like actual training camp, right? Like it has that semblance. It's summer hockey. I'm wearing shorts to the rink. We're hanging out. We're doing that. But it's not just training camp. Like they have to go play in the playoffs for the Stanley Cup when this is all said and done. So it's kind of bizarre, but good. And it's all very weird, Alexis. It's weird.
Yeah, I tweeted the other day that I was just happy to see like actual hockey being played on my timeline, like just clips from training camp and like all of this stuff. And, it is weird, but at the same time, I just try to tell myself, like, don't think about it that way. I'm like, you know what? It's happening. We've been waiting for this. It's happening. They're skating. Even just seeing, like, I woke up this morning and I was on Instagram and I was looking through like the Wild I posted recently, and just seeing like the smiles on their faces. I was like, oh, that touches me right in the soul. Like, that's what I needed. Like, it's weird, but it's exciting. And if you just ignore the fact that we're like in the middle of July, everything is completely normal, right? We're just getting ready for the playoffs. It is what it is. So I don't know. I'm trying to think of it more in that I'm just excited that it's back, because there's been so much weird stuff. I've had enough weird things. I'm happy to be seeing hockey being played. So that's where I'm at with it.
I know. And I know all you line heathens are constantly asking me, like, the lines are the lines. I don't know. They look fine. Nico Sturm and Gerald Mayhew have been partaking in a lot of that Group A outing, which is your regular Wild roster that you see. Again, they're taking 31 players to Edmonton with us. So I imagine those guys will be in. Whether they actually slot into an actual roster spot or any playing time, that is to be seen. An interesting note that I did discover on Friday was that Dean Evason all 4 goalies, because they do have 4 goalies with them at training camp, which is Stalock, Dubnyk.
God damn it, Dean. We've had enough news for the week.
Kakinen and Matt Robeson. All 4 of them will be considered to be for that starting role. And Dean's making it very clear that anybody has an opportunity to step up, which again is all fine and well at the beginning of the season, but it's playoffs. And it's like, how do we not know this? It's interesting. It's after just 1 week. We're starting week 2 here, which is kind of their final week of assessment before they go to Edmonton. I couldn't tell you. I think I stick with my gut that says it's either Stalock or Dubes, right? Like it's one of those two.
It's gotta be it.
Kakinen.
Unless Dean is trying to pump up the speed on the goalie carousel here. I just want this thing to stop. I mean, I don't understand how, like, no offense to Kakinen or Robeson, right? Like, they're both very talented, and we've seen Kakinen,
and they killed it in the A.
Yes.
They were epic down there. I mean, again,
very
goaltender of the year for
goalies.
Capo. Yeah.
But it's like, don't mess with the formula right now. We've got enough going on. Everyone's going to be.
But is there a formula? See, that's the thing. Everything is just
the formula,
slate, baby.
The formula is chaos, and just continue to go with the formula. It's proven to be working. Al was playing fine. Doobie has been kind of up and down this season, but
I don't want a fine goalie when I'm heading into playoffs, Alexis. Especially when you're going against Markstrom, who is a beyond fine goalie. He is a fantastic goalie.
I want to see Al start in the playoffs. I do.
Is that your South St. Paul pride?
Okay, I gotta defend my fellow Packers, but the thing is I feel like, and this is no shade or any offense to Devin Dubnyk, I think he's a tremendous goaltender. and I'm not saying his career is done or with the Wild it's done or anything. I just think this season, it doesn't seem right to put Dubnyk in as the starting goaltender come playoffs. There was too much going on with him in the regular season, and then you have this big break, and maybe that's a reset for him, and it'll end up being a smarter choice to go with Dubnyk. But I think Al is such a competitor, and I would just be really, really interested to see how he handles a playoff scenario. And I think now with everything going on, this is the perfect time to put him in and just see what he can do, because nothing's normal. Why would we follow a plan at this point? Why don't we just do whatever the hell we want, put Allen as the starting goaltender, and see how he matches up against Markstrom? And who's to say you can't change the plan after game 1 or game 2, right? You're not stuck with a certain starting goaltender. You can do whatever you want. So yeah, I say put Allen, have Doobie back him up, and just see where that takes you. And I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, though. I think if you flip-flop it and have Doobie start and have Al back up, I think that would be manageable. But yeah, we'll see what he does if he's now considering all 4 goaltenders. So I mean,
for conversation sake, I'm going to say I want Dubnyk to start. Only because in all of our conversations, and actually I spoke with Al last week too, and he played it very even keeled, like, hey, whoever's in net to start,
right,
that's who's going to start, blah, blah, blah. And he's one of the fiercest competitors I've ever seen. It's so funny. I think I've mentioned to you guys, I've chatted with his dad for various stories, and even his dad's like, that kid hates to lose. Like, I mean, most people do, but he takes it to another level, I think. So I do think you'll get the very best out of him. But I just get the sense that this has been a reset for Dubnyk, just like you said, Alexis. Like, I think he's really coming back extra hungry. I think things with the issues that he was dealing with off the ice, I think have kind of resolved themselves a little bit. I mean, they must have, especially if he's willing to go quarantine for 2 months, right? Like, things must be in a good space there, which I think takes a lot of that strain and stress that he was feeling all season, because for the majority of that season, even when he came back, there was still some unknowns and things were still happening at home, and it was scary for him, I'm sure. And it's hard to focus on your job at hand. It's hard for anybody to do their job when you've got family members that you're worried about. But I think things seem to be good, because I think he's hungry to take that back. I think he wants to prove himself, and again, I think he knows he has to, because that could be a difference maker between, staying here and finishing a career here, or moving on, or what happens. So I kind of think Devin maybe starts game 1 when he gets a look and sees what happens. I'm going to, I guess we'll see. Should we wager a beer on this one too? We'll figure out the McCarthy's one.
Was our, I was like, what was our other bet even on? Yeah, let's wager 2 beers. Okay. 2 beers are on the table.
2 beers.
I just, to counter your point, and I totally, like I said, I can see either decision. They both make sense to me for different reasons, but we always talk in sports, and especially in positions, like goaltender and stuff like that, you talk about earning the right to play, right? Because it is, you have one goaltender who's playing in that game, unless there's an injury or whatever, but it's different than, you've got your set of forwards, your set of defense. In goalie, you've got that one guy who's playing that game, and that's it. And I think, from what I've seen of Al this season, I think he earned his right to have a starting position in the playoffs. I think he put in his time. He stepped in when things were happening with Dubnyk, and Dubnyk couldn't be playing. And I thought he did a good job. So if you look at it that way, had there not been this
break, he would have been your guy, right?
Exactly.
I think that's what makes it so unique and interesting, because, and I brought this up in our conversation with both of them. It was, how weird is this? Because you ride that hot hand. A goalie makes everything different. Everybody knows that, right? Anybody who's watched the playoffs knows what a difference maker the goaltender is during that time. And Alex he was looking good. And had this been a regular season, no question, he's your guy. You're rolling into playoffs with him until until you make him pull, until you have to pull him.
Right.
But that's what's weird, because now it's all, you start all over, right? Because you don't know how anybody's going to come back. You don't know how anyone's going to respond to this. And it's so interesting to see. Like, you're right. No one's going to be wrong, but it's fascinating.
Yeah, we'll see where it goes. And I do know that in the locker room, I will say this, Alex Salak, when the Wild lose, is one of the people I'm scared to have to go interview. Everyone else is kind of like, they just are like, they give you the quotes and whatever. You go up to Alex Salak and it's like lasers coming out of his eyes, and he's angry. So he's a competitor. He takes everything personally. He wants to win, just like everyone does, but like, he responds to those things differently post game than some of the other guys do. So I don't know. We'll see if they go with Al or Doobie, or if they throw a wrench in the plans and pick one of the other guys. But I'm excited to see who they pick, because it's really going to determine how these playoffs unfold depending on who they go with. So
Wait, did you say you're in the locker room because you're a woman? How possibly could you be in a sports locker
Yeah, I
room
actually put on a fake
woman?
mustache and I wear a baseball cap so I fit in.
Guys, I don't want to talk about it again, but we have to freaking talk about it again because it just keeps happening. Women can be in sports because they like sports. They don't have to be in it because they like guys. They don't have to be in it, because of any other outside reason besides the fact that they've earned that right and they've earned the right to be respected in their position. It happened with the Redskins, which is a dumpster fire of a team in general. And they're not the Redskins, I'm sorry, the Washington team that remains nameless as of right now, because that was another issue that they have out there. But you saw 15 women file for sexual harassment in their positions, and it's just enough. Like, I'm exhausted talking about it because it shouldn't be talked about anymore. It's so silly. And again, I speak for myself. I know we're very lucky. I've been very supported. I've never had any of those issues, but it's so sickening to hear how many people do. And just because it doesn't affect me directly doesn't mean that it's not happening. So let's just effing be better, eh?
Yeah, it's frustrating because, again, like you said, and everyone's experience is different, and I'm only a couple years into this, so I am very new to everything, and I've only worked for a handful of teams and places, so my resume isn't that long yet, but I have been, I feel like, very lucky that I haven't had some kind of devastating or traumatizing experience like some of these women come out and have. I've been very lucky to have supportive male mentors and supportive male coworkers, and Alex, in the interview that you guys will hear in a little bit, she talks about, being the only woman in the room. I have had that feeling before where I walk in and I'm the only woman, or I'm in the press box and I look to my left and right and it's all guys in suits. I mean, you do have those moments. And I would say the extent of kind of what I've dealt with, at least in the professional setting, is some people kind of assuming that you want to do it because the boys are cute, and it's like, yeah, they're cute, but I also love sports, and that's why I'm here,
cute
because
too. So
yeah,
like,
what are we talking about here?
Right.
So it's really frustrating to see that other women haven't had as good experiences, or that they have been with organizations who haven't treated them kindly and haven't treated them fairly. And it's so frustrating to have to just keep talking about it. It's like, when can this be done? When can we stop having these conversations? When can women not have to come out anymore because it's not happening anymore? Like, that's the point that we need to try to get to. And I hope that I don't ever have to go through an experience like some of the women come out and have. And like I said, I've been lucky so far, and Jesse, you feel like you've been lucky so far, but it's not the case for everybody, and it's really sad, because you see it happen in numbers. You see it happen. One person comes out and you're like, oh yeah, okay, whatever, and then you have 15, and it's like, well, maybe something more serious is happening if there's 15 different accounts of things going on within the same organization. So
right. One of the quotes that resonated so strongly to me was like, these women feel trapped then, because you say anything or you decide to quit, you have 1,000 other people that are pining for that job, because we are so fortunate to work in this world. But as soon as you say goodbye, it's gone. Like, and especially if you cause a ruckus, and I think the NFL is very different because it's even more of a good old boys club, right? And it's so dominant in this country that it's like, if you are a whistleblower, all of a sudden you're ostracized, and good luck finding another job, because we're going to tell everybody. But it goes, there's a number of things that race through my mind with this. Cause again, I don't know that I've directly, there's been instances where people make maybe some comments, or I've had people not necessarily look me in the eyes, or, they can see it, but I dress up because I want to look nice. I don't dress up for you guys. I don't dress up but it's also kind of funny.
It's also dress code for us to dress nice.
Right,
like, we have to.
Although see, a lot of male reporters would differ, right? That is where it's kind of funny. You do see such a difference in some of that aspect. But yeah, I wish that, because you want this to grow. You want to see more women. We're doing this podcast as a way to hopefully get more girls say, hey, I want to go talk hockey. I just want to be a hockey reporter, and not think about male, female, or otherwise. But when you have reports like this, like, what dad wants their daughter to go work for sports then too, right? Like, you're losing some of that encouragement, and girls keep going for it. Like, most times you'll have a great supportive group. And I think the females in sports media in general across the board are so amazing at supporting each other.
Yep.
But we want more men on our side too, please. Again, everybody that I've ever encountered in my career has been really phenomenal and has really helped me. And I'm so beyond appreciative. And even our listeners here, you guys rock. You guys have been nothing but amazing to us. Even when we chirped Duluth, I'm really sorry, guys. Super sorry. But yeah, so let's all try to be better. If you can lend support to females that you know in the workplace, not just sports, in general, like, fuck it. God, you guys.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just want to say something real fast, just kind of as a girl dad. You guys need to remember, though, you guys are pioneers still.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You
Yeah.
guys aren't mainstream. So you guys are absolute pioneers. And the problem when you have to forge a new path or a new road is you have to knock down a bunch of trees.
Mhm.
Right.
Those trees are still there, and those trees have been there for a long time and have very deep roots. And at some point, those trees are going to be gone, and the path will be much smoother. But you're still going to have a lot of those potholes you got to fill. And I just want to applaud you guys, and I also want to applaud the women that are standing up for themselves because they finally feel that the environment is one that is positive enough where they can say, this was wrong and I need to come forward. And it's a ton of bravery for them to do that. But we're getting there, but there's so many things that still need to change.
Yeah, I know. Even when, talking about paving paths and kind of, being leaders in that sense, I know when the Whitecaps went to the Isabel Cup final a couple years ago, and my broadcast, and it was in Minnesota because they were the best team in the league, and so they hosted. And my broadcast partner for the Whitecaps is a female, for those who don't know, and she is amazing as well. And we broadcasted that game, and I came to find out that we were the first female duo to broadcast a professional championship sporting game. And I thought, that's crazy that I did that it's 20 at the time it was 2018.
Yeah.
I'm 23 years old and I'm making history. It's cool, but it's also sad that someone didn't do that sooner. That's kind of the way I see it, that it's exciting to know that hopefully I'm being a good role model, or hopefully I'm doing something that people can look up to, but sad that I have to be the person to do it, and that this didn't happen 50 years ago, 75 years ago. And but it's crazy because Fred's right. It's it's a time where we are still leading the way, and we have leaders ahead of us, but we're also leaders in a way. And it's, hopefully these women continue who have these issues that they want to bring forth, that they feel brave enough and have a comfortable enough environment to say something, because it's not right that they should have to live with that or to work in that kind of environment. And as you said, Jesse, hopefully, when women come forth with this kind of stuff, it's not because they necessarily want to put people on blast or do all that kind of stuff. It's just they just want a safe environment to work in. They want to be treated equally. They want to be respected, and that's all it comes down to at the end of the day, is just creating those safe spaces for minorities, whether that be women, people of color, whatever it is, to work and have fun working and work hard just like everyone else does. So
I'm gonna start smacking guys' ass and looking them. I mean, it's funny because that's what it is. And the double standard is, of course, the guys are gonna be like, "Oh, cool, really?" No, that's not what I'm doing. But it's, I mean, again, just be better. I know there are so many greats out there that for me always outweigh the bad, but there's still so much bad. So much still needs to change. And again, like Alex said, we're now in 2020. And if women can't feel safe in sports and can't feel comfortable working in sports, what the hell are we doing? Let's knock it off. I'm still going to keep going to the rink. I'm going to be there. There are many instances, again, where I have been the only female, and young Jessie felt nervous about it. Older Jessie doesn't. I just, hi, how are you? I'm Jessie. I mean, at this point in time, you just embrace it and kind of do that. It's so funny. One last final story is, because my name is also a boy name, I will never forget when I had a couple bylines and somebody called to question me about it. And the shock in their voice when they discovered I was a girl was hilarious. You could tell it was just this older man. He was like, "Hey, need to talk to Jessie?" I'm like, "Yep, that's me." "You wrote this hockey story?" "Yep, I did." I mean, this isn't on the record, but it was something I was like, yeah, it's just a girl writing about hockey. Or even when I've done podcasts and I did a live one and this gentleman turned around, "It's a girl up there." It's me. So girls, keep going after your dreams. You got this. We will help you in any certain way that we can to get you broke into this media world. We'll introduce you to some good dudes that will help as well. But we got your back. So we're going to take a quick break before we get to another amazing woman in sports, Alex Mandryky. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In addition to our presence in the Soda Stick store, we've got even more Beauties merch available in our Bardown Beauties Teespring collection. Wear a custom-designed 5-hole Bardown tank while feeding your babe in an official Beauties onesie and sipping from your Bardown Beauties coffee mug. We've got it all. Go check it out and support the Beauties.
Joining us now as we talk about amazing women in sports and how they obviously need to be in the space because they're so important. We have formerly with the Minnesota Wild for 4 seasons, now preparing analytics with the latest NHL expansion squad in Seattle, a hockey version of Elle Woods, in a sense, and a proud new mama to a baby boy, Alex Mandryky. Alex, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you guys for having me on.
And you said you got plenty of sleep last night, baby boy's giving you a little bit of a break.
Yeah, he shocked us with like 7 hours straight of sleeping, which was both amazing and terrifying. So he's been a good baby so far, and I always preface that with so far because I recognize it will change any second, and it most likely will, and he will become a monster. So.
I mean, probably not for you, right? I'll put that good omen out there for you. He's going to be perfect. It's going to be wonderful. You know, that's how you have the second one. And then the second one, that's when things kick up, right, Fred?
Yeah, she's a numbers girl, though. So she knows everything about percentages, and it's probably not going to stay that way. But all right.
Exactly. You know, and so let's dive right in. Like Fred said, you're a numbers girl. Numbers are your thing. What exactly does your job entail? How did you get involved in it? Start from the beginning with us.
Yeah, so I guess I'll speak about being an analyst for a team that actually exists, because this past year and next year is a little different than, you know, what I was doing when I was in Minnesota. But basically as an analyst, kind of working in the hockey operations department with like coaches, management, scouts, strength and conditioning coach, really just getting all the data that people are collecting. Like even for people that are like anti-analytics, they're still working with data, right? Coaches still in their heads, you're looking at a game sheet after a game, you have specific things that you're looking for with players. And so I think I see our role as a team is taking that sort of expertise in everyone's domain, grabbing, kind of getting their data, and then turning that into like an actionable insight. So if you're working with a coach, maybe they're used to like making tally marks on a sheet. And, you know, instead of tally marks, let's move that into the computer age, and we can make maybe a little fancier report for them to make their job easier.
So what does that look like for you? You said, you know, working for a team who's not playing yet compared to a team who was playing when you were working for them. What kind of job responsibilities are different there as you kind of become a part of this team that's still getting into their first season, and obviously all this behind the scenes stuff that's happening in the meantime? What kind of different responsibilities do you have with Seattle that you did with the Wild?
Yeah, so it was a little interesting because for the first like 8 months that I was a part of the NHL Seattle staff, I was really the only like hockey operations employee in Seattle. And so you get kind of dragged into a bunch of things, like we're designing our locker room. You have to like, so much minutia kind of goes into things like that, our practice facility. As you're talking about like how many parking spaces we need to allocate for players on game day, like just a lot of kind of random stuff that for an established team that's kind of already been taken care of. And so, yeah, kind of like administrative, like operational stuff like that. And then really setting up, you know, when I came to the Wild in 2015, like a lot of that sort of data infrastructure existed to like be able to run analysis and figure out which players we should take in the expansion draft, to actually have data to do that, whether that's from the NHL, the AHL, different vendors that we may partner with, and kind of get that in a usable format. So then we can do the stuff that people probably think analysts do all day, which is like type on our computers and magically code spits out and it tells us which players to draft.
You know, you were hired before they even hired a general manager in Seattle too. I mean, how much does that speak to the importance of what you bring to a team and people in your position, that, you know, it's something that teams really highly value to, again, be hired before they even have much else to go off? You were there.
Yeah, that was a little bit strange for me. Like kind of hopefully I end up liking my boss, and hopefully perhaps more importantly, my boss ends up liking me. But it definitely, like across, when I got to NHL Seattle, kind of on the hockey operations data side, you know, they had already hired a VP of strategy on the business side who is kind of taking the business side into this data driven decision making. And so it's like a really big, and I would say, priority for our organization in general, both in business and in hockey. So I think it made me feel very comfortable that I was going to end up feeling as though I had an impact on the organization moving forward.
So talk a little bit about hockey analytics specifically. So it's, you look at all these different sports and kind of how analytics are used in different sports. How would you rank your job kind of in analytics and hockey compared to some of the other major sports? Is it harder? Is it easier? Is there more that goes into it? What does it look like when you compare it to the other sports?
Yeah. So I think everyone probably thinks that their job is really hard. If you ask any analysts and like for different sports organizations, they'd probably say that their sport has it the hardest or the worst. But there's pretty limited data in hockey available until really the last few seasons. And so that in itself, when you're kind of working with limited data, your insights and recommendations are limited by that. But I think as we look forward to like tracking data, hopefully next season, and then some vendors have really pushed into this space over the last few seasons as well, providing us with some more information. I think hockey in general is extremely fluid, and that's where you get a lot of, I'd say, apprehension on behalf of some scouts or coaches or management, because they feel as though it's hard to quantify. And that's because it really is hard to quantify when you compare it to a sport like baseball,
right,
where it's kind of, very concrete, situational sort of things. And then even, a sport like basketball is kind of similar, but hockey is so low scoring, right? In basketball, it's kind of the expectation that you're going to score on a possession. And in hockey, like, that doesn't happen very frequently.
Or people like Devin Dubnyk would hope it doesn't happen very frequently, right?
Yes.
It's so funny. I for one do think your job is very hard because I hate numbers. I hate everything to do with numbers. It's terrible. But it is so funny from the writing standpoint how much we are looking for that and how much our readers are now gobbling all of this analytics and all these stats and these different varying things. And it's funny because your website that you created, a blog, essentially led to this job with an NHL team. When you guys had started that with Andrew Thomas, who also worked with the Wild alongside you, did you foresee that transitioning into a bigger role with a team or with any certain organization, or what was that like for you?
Yeah, that was basically because I was bored. Is why I started working on that website. And certainly, like, my motivation was never to get a job with an NHL team. Like, at that time, there were maybe like less than a handful of analysts really even working for teams. So it wasn't even seen like as a potential career path for me. Sure. It was really just because like working with the website, I was basically doing what I was doing at my day job, which is working with databases, creating applications, but then working on hockey data instead of like inventory data. So slightly more exciting, but don't tell my former employer that. And so it kind of just happened by accident, I would say. And sometimes I feel bad phrasing it like that because I recognize I'm in a position that, many sort of aspire to now, but kind of the reason that they're aspiring to it is because these positions exist. And so that's where, as kind of analytics and technology become more prominent in the NHL, like there's so many more opportunities. Over the last year, we've hired, like, there's 4 other people on my team now, whereas most are in the past, like most organizations, you're only going to have like 1 or 2 analysts on staff. So there's a lot more opportunity for everyone now as well.
Was hockey kind of lagging in a sense to really grasp onto analytics? I always go back. Moneyball is probably one of my favorite movies ever, right? Not just because of Brad Pitt, but I think it's hilarious. But I mean, that movie really gave you a look into how baseball started to really utilize analytics in the sense for winning, right? And that was years ago. I mean, was hockey behind compared to other sports at all that you noticed?
I think so. Like, it was kind of baseball really took off, and that's they just had more data to work with. And I think because you immediately saw this impact with Moneyball, right? Teams that were utilizing it were all of a sudden having success. And so it's kind of like, well, you have to get on the boat or else you're going to be left behind.
Right.
Basketball was next because they had this influx of tracking data like in the early, maybe around 2010, 2011. And so that propelled kind of data forward. And then I would say hockey and American football are relatively kind of similar in terms of their adoption. It's really increasing. Now if you go to any NHL team's website, you're going to see at least one or two analysts or developers or data engineers on the hockey operations side.
So how would you say, you talked about how hockey is a very fluid sport, and because of that, analytics, there could be kind of a curveball thrown in there from time to time because of the amount of situations that a hockey game has. So do you think that's maybe the hardest part of your job, is trying to figure out what is important to analyze, or is there something else that you would say is a harder part of your job? Does that make it more difficult for you working in hockey because of that?
Yeah, I think the hardest part about working in analytics and hockey, and I think a lot of sort of industries have the same thing, is that you can do the right thing, right? You can pull the goalie at the right time or deploy the right players on the power play, but you're still you're not increasing your chances that much, right? Say if you're a really good team in hockey, you might still only beat the worst team in the NHL 60% of the time, right? We all see those games where you completely outplay the team and yet you still lose. And so being convincing kind of the stakeholders that it's still about doing the right things, even if you don't immediately see the results, because over the longer term, it'll end up benefiting you. I think that's one of the harder parts. I mean, even the best shooters in the NHL are only converting on, a quarter of their shots.
Right.
Does that mean that they're bad players when they don't score a goal for a few games? No.
Right. No, and reminder Wild fans, that's what she's saying. That does not mean that they're terrible players, right? No, you guys are harsh. In the grand scheme for your job, are you looking more big picture at the full team analytics? Obviously, it's a team sport with so many individual aspects and analytics that go into that. Is one more important than the other when it comes to sharing those results with different team management and hockey operations, or how exactly does that all work together?
Yeah. And that's where, even within the hockey operations department, you can sometimes have competing interests, because a coach is going to care about winning the next game, right? They want that 25% shooter to score, in overtime, right? They need that to happen. Whereas a general manager, if someone like that is looking more long term, they might be more willing to accept kind of, looking at trends over the course of a season. What I think that is starting to happen, and you see this in basketball as well, is there's an analyst that works directly with the coaching staff a lot of times, and sometimes that'll be a video coach as well, where they really are tuning in on kind of the strategy and how specific players, their tendencies, and when you're talking about pre-scouting the opposition, how do we truly optimize for a single game versus just identifying which players are good and which players are not as good.
You evaluate trades then in a sense, if you were to look at so I'm sure Wild fans would love to know who won out on some of these trades. I know you're obviously not here within the department, but I mean, are those things that you also work on and to let, again, management know, hey, this Charlie Coyle for Ryan Donato was good, or, vice versa?
Yeah, that's a huge part of it. Just depending on the calendar, kind of what you're focused on. So as you sort of lead up to the trade deadline as an analyst, you're probably focusing on, okay, what are these trades that we're discussing? Which of these players do we identify as the one who's going to help our team the most? And you're kind of advising, I would say, management, and whether they choose to kind of act on your recommendation or not is, that's not up to you, but your job is to educate them and really empower them with as much information as possible, in the same way that if you're a scout, you're going to be, talking to the manager on the phone, giving your feedback. I often say we're just kind of another scout in the room, because even though I could have a 20-page report comparing two players, but at the end of the day, the GM just wants to know if he should make the trade or not. And so the data doesn't really tell you, like, there's not just I don't know, I guess there could be an algorithm that tells you whether or not to make the trade, but at the end of the day, it also is subjective, right? I think something that can be a misconception sort of among fans is they think that like the data says something or the analytics says something, and that's really not the case. An analyst ultimately says something. Like I could look at the same exact data set comparing two players and come to a completely different conclusion than a different analyst, because it's all about kind of the metrics that I choose to believe, whether that's through just my opinion or through kind of my knowledge and like model creation to identify what's most important. But we could come to completely different conclusions using the same data set.
So you talked about, how we're seeing more and more analysts getting hired, or more positions are being open for analysts for these hockey teams and stuff, and kind of the importance that's being put on it. But at the same time, you are part of an organization now that is making an effort to hire more women as well, and just making a very conscious effort to do that. What does that mean as a woman to be hired by an organization who is very aware that that's an important thing to incorporate into this into Seattle here, as the team becomes more solidified and all the behind the scenes people become more solidified? Is that something you thought about as you went through the hiring process and they took you on, and as you see more and more people get hired for the organization?
Yeah, it's something that really sort of excited me from the get-go when I was speaking with the CEO, Todd Leiweke, who was actually in Minnesota during the expansion process for Minnesota, which is pretty neat. He definitely truly understands the value that women, just diversity in general, can bring to an organization. And there's been some really cool moments. Like we had a meeting maybe last November and we realized it was like 13 women and 1 man in the meeting.
Yes.
It's like
Beautiful.
director, VP level. It's like, man, how does it feel? Like this is how we feel a lot of the time.
Yeah, Fred, do you feel good right now? Does this feel as just dominant women?
At this
It's
point, we're 31 episodes in. I'm used to it. Whatever.
Yeah. And, I think bringing Cami Granado on was super exciting. Talk about an amazing player. She's picked up scouting, like she's been doing it forever, and just an amazing person. And, I had to reflect when we had like scouting meetings in January, and there was more than 1 woman sitting at the table because Cami was there. And I had legitimately never experienced that kind of in my time in hockey, where there's more than one of me. And it's funny, you just get so used to kind of being that only one. And it was so exciting.
It's amazing because the more you get to show that, I mean, people see it and they want to do it. So I think it's absolutely fantastic to see not only you continue to elevate in these roles, but then just to see Seattle recognize that they need to do their part as an expansion team to kind of maybe start to shift the culture and shift the way that a front office looks to everybody outside.
Yeah. And I think it's so much about building the pipeline. Like, I think you can talk a lot about, they should hire more, teams should hire a female amateur scout. And it's like, well, if there aren't female amateur scouts maybe working in the CHL or the USHL, like you need to have people to sort of promote into these positions. And that's where, if more female coaches start coaching in the junior ranks, that probably increases the likelihood that we'll see a female coach in kind of the NHL sphere. So hopefully it's not just the NHL. We want to set sort of an example for the leagues below us as well.
So what do you think about Seattle as a hockey city overall? Do you see it as a natural fit? I mean, we just saw hockey come to Vegas, and I know there was kind of split opinions on whether that was a hockey city or not. And they're showing that if they weren't before, they certainly are becoming one now. How do you feel about Seattle and them accepting a new hockey organization there, and kind of maybe some of the natural opponents that some good matchups, like Vancouver or something nearby? What do you think about how that'll look overall as their first season starts?
Will they make a Stanley Cup run their first year like Vegas did?
I thought we might make it through the whole podcast without mentioning Vegas' Stanley Cup run. It's
no pressure.
The Vegas run was so exciting and just so like, quite frankly, weird for, I think, everyone in the hockey space. And, you know, I think their success will it makes people here more excited, right?
Yeah.
They understand that we will hopefully be competitive from the get-go. And while that's an extremely high bar that Vegas has set, I think it gives us and our fans sort of something to aspire to. We moved out to Seattle in 2014 and from Atlanta. So like hockey dead zone. We had a ECHL team at the time because the Thrashers had left. And we went to like a preseason game between the two WHL teams that are out here, Everett Silvertips and the Seattle Thunderbirds. And it was like packed. It was a packed arena for a preseason WHL game in 2014. And both those WHL teams have had quite a bit of success, and they have extremely diehard fan bases. Like you go to a game and it can get a little crazy. So we already have kind of a hockey culture here in Seattle, and we're really looking forward to, you know, working with those fans, but then also identifying and converting, you know, the crazy Seattle Seahawks fans and the Mariners fans and the Seattle Sounders fans into hopefully hockey lovers. But it's such a great sports town. We hope that we give them something to cheer for and identify with, and teach them a little bit about hockey along the way as well.
It's also a very weird sports town because of the fan culture there. I mean, it's a fan culture that's been scorned, you know, with the Supersonics leaving town for Oklahoma. So they
Supersonics, yes, bring them back.
Yeah, see, but they have these weird little pockets where they're still hungry for stuff that they're not getting, like basketball or hockey, and so they basically are a baseball, football kind of town, they think. But then all of a sudden, the Sounders came in, and that is nuts. That fan base is absolutely crazy and could rival anything over in England for real. The amount of people that they put into CenturyLink Field is insane. So I think it's a perfect time to pounce on that energy that they have in Seattle. It's crazy.
A reminder, guys, Fred is our Seattle guy.
Sorry, I lived some context.
We're like, why does he know so much about Seattle?
I lived there for 3 years. So Alex and I kind of bonded a little bit over Seattle when she worked at the Wild.
He loved that. And to bring it local too, Adam Beckman, Minnesota Wild prospect, played for the WHL Everett Silvertips too. So that's kind of a little further connection. Fred, I want you to ask a couple of your questions that you had, or little notes, because they're personal and they're to you, and you get to catch up with Alex, your girl. Well, mostly because I don't know much about what Rain City bitch pigeons are.
Rain City bitch pigeons.
I don't even know if she can talk about that since she's officially with Seattle.
I just want to know if she can confirm or deny if Rain City bitch pigeons is the name of Seattle.
Is that the name? It is. You can drop it. Scoop. We got it.
Come on.
I mean, would we really have Rain City instead of Seattle in the team name?
So bitch pigeons is on the table for the mascot still, is what you're saying.
I can neither confirm or deny that I have a mug that says Rain City bitch pigeons on it. That was purchased before I started working for the team. So
I have my fingers crossed that's the name.
Oh my God, the internet guys just leaned way into that, and the logo is fantastic. If you guys just Google Rain City bitch pigeons,
it's so good.
It is amazing.
It's the most badass pigeon you're ever going to see.
How does this not a professional team?
I mean, maybe like the whole bitch thing, but that's just my guess. Like,
yeah, maybe that won't play well with the kids. Who knows? And the moms.
That's a good name, nonetheless.
I mean, when I knew Alex, every single game was her in her little corner of the press box, sitting below Chuck Fletcher, just taking notes and concentrating on the game. And then I'd like sneak in behind the security guard that like separated her from everybody else and like just talk to her between periods. And then I had to get kicked out because security came in. What was it like to actually sit below the GM box
and not get kicked out?
Yes, security never tried to remove me. It was interesting, like watching a game kind of in a professional capacity is also strange. I mean, you guys know what a press box is like, but I basically never cheered. Like I tried so hard to show no emotion. The worst thing could be happening to our team. The best thing could be happening to our team. And I would just try to sit there with a straight face and part of that is because, as an analyst, and even I would say as someone invested in the team's sort of success, you never want to get too excited. Like, don't ride the highs too high and don't get down in the lows. And so during a game, like, I would have my computer out and I wasn't really necessarily working during the game besides paying attention. Probably once or twice a game, you would get a request from one of the coaches sitting sort of directly above you, like an eye in the sky type coach. So it was a little bit different than watching a game as a fan. And I definitely enjoyed the press box snacks.
What was your favorite?
day.
What's your favorite? We all probably could name our favorites right now. I could
Dilly bar night. Oh God, I could go for a dilly bar.
Yeah, pretzels were my favorite. And for a while they had been taken out of the rotation. And then Aaron Stickman, I don't know if it was because I complained a lot about it or not, but all of a sudden they showed back up. So.
Well, if it was you, thank you, because that's one of my favorite press box
They're pretty
snacks,
frequent
so.
now. Yeah. Fred, what was your favorite?
Blondie night.
That's my favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely the blondies.
I go back for those. I like take 4 at a time because I know they're going to be gone so fast. So if nobody gets them, I'm sorry, but that's because my fat ass needs them like with me at the front. Like they're so freaking good. Like they're the best. I don't even like blondies like regularly.
They're
but
good,
these
though.
there's like
Yeah.
crack in them. They're so good. Like it's delicious and they go so fast. But that would be my favorite night as well. So, well, Alex, we missed seeing you in the press box. Fred, did you have any other wrap-up questions that you wanted to? You don't want to help her move, I noticed, right?
No, yeah, I've helped her move apartments before, so I'm not going to do that again. I mean, the only thing to say is it is just insane to see like you just take this meteoric rise to like the front of a front office. I mean, because you were splitting time between Minnesota and Seattle at the time because your husband was getting his doctorate, correct? So
yes.
like you were already like there, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, this amazing job just opens up. Why don't you just take it? I mean, that's insane to me. So congratulations.
Yes, we're proud of you. We're proud to say that you like had a little bit of part of Minnesota then, right? So we can claim you like we claim everything that we possibly can.
I loved my time in Minnesota, like both with the team and then the city. I always it always kind of reminded me of home being in Atlanta, and I miss Tom Reed's hockey pub a lot.
Oh yeah.
So.
Tom Reed sponsor us. Shout out to them.
Please.
It is the best. Well, no, Alex, thank you so much. Good luck. I look forward to seeing what more comes of Seattle.
Yeah.
Still a little bit of time. Is that weird that it's still kind of like far off? We've been talking about Seattle like it's imminent, but there's still a whole another year.
Yeah.
And again, with everything going on, how's that been?
Yeah, it's a little bit weird to kind of watch the NHL figure out how they're going to return to play and then like not be really involved in it. Certainly we want hockey to come back in a safe way, and selfishly, like we hope that there's hockey soon and then we get as much of a full season next year as possible, just so that we have more sort of scouting information.
Or analytics on players you want to draft, right?
Yes. But it's been strange, and even if they're gonna push back the start of next season, how does that affect? Is the expansion draft still in June? But personally, I won't complain about having more time to prepare. So.
Well, we look forward to for sure at least having hockey with Seattle included in 2021-22. Alex, thank you again so much. Keep kicking ass, doing your thing. We're gonna take a quick break. Stay tuned, guys.
Hey everybody, this is producer Fred. First off, thank you very much to everybody that went out and rated Bardown Beauties on all of your podcast platforms. We really, really appreciate it. Now, let's tell everybody you know. Let's tell your friends, let's tell your mom, let's tell your grandma, let's tell your hockey coach. Let's grow Bardown Beauties podcast.
Thanks again to Alex. That was awesome. Like, I'm so bad with numbers. I can't imagine how she does that. And even just breaking things down, I have to pull a lot of that stat stuff into some articles. And I'm always like, what does this mean? Like, what? Some of it's just a little bit over my head. That's why I'm a word person, guys. I'm not much numbers. So if you want that stuff, that's not your gal, unfortunately. But she kicks ass. It's really cool to see her making moves into the front office and giving females a goal and a role model to look up to. Now, time for everybody's favorite segment, where Alexis dives into her childhood diary pre-Twitter to give her thoughts, rants, raves, reviews on the Minnesota Wild squad and that evening's game. Here's Dear Diary with Alexis.
Last week was a rampage. This one is a nice touching one. Wild versus Avalanche, October 21st, 2009. I went to bed after the second period, but I couldn't stand not being able to watch the game and only hear it. So I snuck onto the steps and I watched the shootout. But Dad caught me, and as in caught, I mean he let me come downstairs and watch the shootout.
Aw, Jim, what a sweetheart. That was cute.
Yeah, because when I was a kid, my parents, like, you know, like the West Coast games, you know, my bedtime's like 8:30, right? So I would never be able to watch them. And if I did, I could never watch the whole thing. So I would always sneak out of bed and I would sit at the top of the stairs, like by the closet there, and just curl up like this and listen to the game as it was going on downstairs. And I think, like, now that I'm older, I think my parents always knew I was there, but they were like, we'll just let her watch it because she obviously loves this. Yeah. So, but apparently
prepare
at the time
for late night games with those qualifiers in Vancouver, Edmonton too.
Well, thankfully I don't have a bedtime anymore, so I should be good to go.
I mean, I do, but we'll
self-made
try
bedtime.
to stay up. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks as always for everybody for listening to us. Don't forget to rate, review, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Help us keep growing. We will announce those winners of that epic little t-shirt contest that we had. Thank you to everybody that did take time to give us a rating and review on your specific podcast platform. We appreciate you. We'll announce those winners later this week. We'll be back next week for you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.